What if I told y'all the NBA isn't just a game, but it's a script?
Because the FBI did a thorough investigation, and even the NBA concluded that I did not fix games in the NBA.
Liar! Liar!
And I also think the NBA is sort of low-key rigged. You know?
Really?
Really?
You think it is rigged?
Definitely manipulated.
We have a lot of Los Angeles Clipper fans saying that the NBA was rigged. That's the reason why LeBron James and them made that comeback against the Clippers about a week ago and won that game.
Something just ain't right. And that's what I'm going to say if the Lakers lose tonight's game. All you're doing is getting all the conspiracy theorists to say that the NBA is rigged.
Let's be real. Y'all ever watch a primetime game and think,
Prime time.
As Miller keeps it and smashes it down.
The other two, then they'll do it one more time.
Oh, between the legs. Kobe Bryant.
Look at him. Check him out.
man, something about this just doesn't add up? Maybe it's those wild comebacks that look like they just came straight out of a movie script?
Yes! I don't believe what I have seen! Battle back from 35 and win!
Or some foul calls that always seem to magically go one team's way? Or maybe it's a star player who can pretty much tackle somebody and not get whistled, while everyone else gets called for hand checks.
If in the era of hand checking, you hand check, I do get by you and I come in here, what's happening? Oh.
Well, what if I told you actual NBA players and refs have come out saying this isn't just a coincidence, that the NBA might be rigged?
And his fellow refs can't find it, and as best as we can tell, law enforcement can't find it. So I accept the prevailing view.
In this video, we're going to break down real stories from guys who've been on the court or behind the scenes, players, refs, and insiders who claim the league is tilted. From big market teams supposedly getting all the calls, to entire playoff series feeling like they've been decided before the ball even went up. We're covering it all. And once you hear these stories, you'll never watch a game the same way again. Trust me on that.
Half-court shot! Good!
For decades, going back to like the Magic Bird era, dudes have been whispering that the NBA is more about money and storylines than straight up hoops. But instead of jumping on random fan theories, today we got actual receipts from people in the middle of the action. It's one thing for a fan on Twitter to say, we got robbed by the refs, but it's a whole different level when a ref himself or an NBA All-Star is out here saying, man, we pretty much had no shot unless we beat the other team by 15, and we'll break down exactly what he meant.
They would show you plays and say, this was a foul that was missed, and these three referees missed this play. Make sure you don't let this happen tonight. Make sure you call this when this happens.
So does the NBA really tell refs to give superstar calls to certain players? Was that 2012 Game 7 legit? Or was it rigged so LeBron and the Heat could move on?
Every season is like a movie, and I'm like living in it. Like I'm the star in the movie. Like it feels dope as shit. I'll be feeling like Batman. I feel like Batman, Black Panther, all them, all of them, every single like.
It's also a topic of conversation to talk about the serious amount of money that comes in when a playoff series goes 6 or 7 games instead of 4 or 5. From Tim Donaghy's gambling scandal to what players are saying about how they go into games so the game isn't decided by the refs. We're about to get into it all.
So prior to the scandal breaking, he was actually seen as a pretty good ref. Tim Donaghy was not only just betting on the games, but he was also refereeing games in which he had a stake in the outcome.
Starting off with the man who had all the power, Tim Donaghy. He's the ex-NBA ref who got caught betting on games he officiated. That alone is crazy enough. But the real bombshell is him saying that the league straight up encourages refs to favor certain players and certain teams to keep things profitable.
I was not actually in these games fixing the games and you know, throwing calls to win a bet.
You expect us to believe that you did nothing.
Imagine your supervisor is telling you, don't call so many fouls on Jordan. He's the ticket seller. That's basically what Donaghy claimed was happening behind closed doors. Tim Donaghy shared an instance where he called a foul on Michael Jordan's famous spin move in a Bulls game. Phil Jackson apparently lost his mind. And Donaghy says that other refs pulled him aside and were like, bro, you do not make that call on Michael Jordan.
Phil Jackson comes flying off the bench and he starts giving me shit. And I said, wait a second, Phil, you know as well as I do, that's the spin move that they're telling us to call. And he said, they may want that play called, but they certainly don't want it called on him. And he pointed at Jordan, who walked by and just stared at me.
According to Tim Donaghy, that type of special treatment applied to stars like Kobe, LeBron, or whoever was the face of the league at the time. Now, Tim Donaghy ended up with a prison sentence for the gambling side of this. Some people says that kills his credibility. Understood. Others point out that because he was literally in the middle of it, he knew the inside of how the league operated. He kept insisting entire playoff series were swayed for bigger markets and higher ratings. And honestly, once you hear and see that, when looking at our league today, it's hard to unsee. You ever notice how certain high-profile playoff series always seem to go down to Game 7s? Is that just the hype of the big game competition, or is somebody behind the scenes pulling strings? An NBA player once said, "We gotta win by 15 just to win by 1."
I tell young dudes the same thing, like, yo, we gotta win by 15 and win by 1. And I understand it. So it's like, so we get in this game, you know how much money the NBA is gonna lose.
Which means, if you're not blowing the other team out, the refs can tip just enough calls the other way to keep things close, or even flip the outcome.
Went into his shot and referees didn't deem it enough.
Now Fred VanVleet was just thrown out of the game.
Freddie's got to be careful.
Back in the 2012 playoffs, word on the street was that the league wanted the Miami Heat with LeBron and D-Wade in the finals because they brought that superstar appeal in the TV ratings. An NBA player on the opposing team, who most of us probably already know, was saying, "Man, we gotta beat this team by double digits or else we ain't winning." And sure enough, Miami advanced. Now, of course, the Heat were a top tier squad in their own right, but to hear a player say that the league was basically setting the table for them to win is wild. Let's talk about the money. Every additional playoff game means a whole lot of extra bread for the league. Ticket sales, TV ads, merchandise, you name it. A 7-game series is way different as far as revenue compared to a quick 4 or 5 game knockout. And if the series features household names like LeBron, the NBA is laughing all the way to the bank. Jumping to 2016, the Warriors just had their best regular season ever at 73-9 and went up 3-1 on the Cavs in the finals. Then Draymond Green gets suspended for Game 5 after a run-in with LeBron. Next thing you know, Cleveland flips the script, storms back, and wins the series in 7. But was Draymond's suspension legit, or did the league see a golden opportunity to stretch the finals and boost TV ratings? Draymond had piled up enough technicals and flagrant points that one more put him on the bench for that game. When he and LeBron got tangled, the NBA upgraded Dre's action to a flagrant after reviewing the tape. So he had to sit out Game 5. We know how the story went. The Warriors lost all that momentum, and then the Cavs gained that momentum. And suddenly, Cleveland pulls off a championship comeback we'll never forget. Ratings went through the roof for that Game 7, and it became an instant classic. LeBron's crowning achievement and Kyrie's clutch shot. From a storyline angle, it was perfect for the NBA. A 3-1 comeback, history for the league, and the most watched finals in years.
Trying to stay with Curry, catches, one dribble, steps back, puts up a 3, won't go, rebound tip taken by Spades, final seconds, it's over, it's over! Cleveland is a city of champions once again!
But for the Warriors fans, it was like, seriously? Draymond gets suspended at the exact moment Cleveland needs a spark? There's so many more instances of this. You got the 2002 Western Conference Finals, Lakers versus Kings. Game 6 is still called the worst officiated playoff game ever. The Lakers shot an absurd number of free throws in the fourth quarter to force Game 7, and eventually knocked out Sacramento. You got the 2006 NBA Finals with the Mavericks and the Heat. D-Wade basically lived at the free throw line, helping Miami come back from being down 2-0. Mavs fans still say they got robbed by some insanely one-sided officiating. What about star protection calls? Everybody from Jordan to Kobe to LeBron has been accused of getting that A-list whistle. If you breathe on them wrong, that's a foul. But if you flip it around, that same contact might get ignored. Put all this together, and dudes start thinking the NBA is not just about letting the best players hoop, but it's also about controlling the narrative for maximum cash and viewership. Alright, so now that y'all heard these stories, how are y'all feeling? Convinced the NBA is rigged? Or do you think it's just human error and the natural bias that star players earn after years of proving themselves? Let's keep it real. The conversation is not going away anytime soon. And I genuinely really want to know what y'all think, so drop y'all takes in the comments. But also, if you're the type to look deeper into how narratives, numbers, and media bias shapes who we call MVP, then you gotta check out my last video on Jokic and SGA. I'll show you exactly why the gap between these two might be tighter than the mainstream wants to admit, and how the same media machine that hypes certain teams can do it to tilt award races. So head over to that video next. You'll come away with a fresh perspective on the MVP conversation. and see how the politics of the league can shape everything from all-star voting to MVP trophies. And while you're at it, hit me with a sub and turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive. We're only scratching the surface. There's plenty more to break down with the NBA. Peace.